just now while we were going through some random moments in the day after having being done with our court appearances, sitting with the boys and the other other people in the team, we were discussing random old cases, one of which came up, and this is one of my favorite cases to narrate, because I think I'd like to call this particular person the luckiest husband, in brackets, as far as a matrimonial dispute is concerned. Because obviously, Kuldeep here was there, Anubhav was there, and a bunch of other people, advocates were there to kind of help this client, get this result. And obviously, we put in a lot of effort. But in terms of sheer luck of the situation in the whole thing, right? And I thought that this would be a wonderful example for a lot of husbands who especially lose hope, and they think that being in India, we can't do anything. The wife can file her FIR against us, the wife can file her domestic violence petition against us, the wife can file maintenance cases and a bunch of other things. What can I as a husband do, right? I can file a divorce case, or I can file a restitution of conjugal rights case. And I have on other occasions discussed why it is almost a completely futile effort to do so. And in this particular situation with this husband, things could have gone far more ugly, right? Obviously, now I can talk about it because it's been almost, I think, a year since the matter's been disposed of. And obviously, we want to wait, have things completely cool down, the emotions, the sentiments of joy and of horror simmer down before we can talk about things like this. And this case was extremely interesting because of other things as well. The lady herself was trained in the art of seeking her remedies, because she herself was working in an NGO for women's rights. And the client used to complain that even if I would ask her to get me a glass of water, she would start complaining about how she's being oppressed. But a bigger concern for the client was the fact that this lady's very near dear relative was actually a senior designated advocate in Delhi. And that was a big concern, because obviously one thing is that the lady did not have to spend money on lawyers because she had a lawyer in house, and that to a designated senior at that. And on top of that, with having a senior designated advocate with you also carries along the power, the prestige, the connections, right? The connections with the judiciary, connections with the police. And so a lot of apprehension and concern was there, not just in the client's eyes, but in mine as well. But I remember, and I call this guy the luckiest husband, right? Because of what we are going to be talking about. In fact, the litigations that pursued, I'm going to share a link of the PDF, in the comments perhaps, or in the description, which will show you exactly to what extent, things transpired. And why again why I'll mention again and again, this was the luckiest person out there. Because in terms of availing of legal remedies by a husband against the wife and her relatives, there are a lot of remedies which are available to a husband, right? The civil cases, criminal cases, a civil suit and a criminal complaint that a husband can file, that the husband's relatives can file, not just against the wife but her relatives as well. But from our experience, it's not that everything that you file you will get immediate effective result immediately, right? There are a lot of constraints on a lot of occasions, technical problems here and there. Convincing the judge sometimes becomes difficult from time to time. So it's not 100% guaranteed we'll get success in every single case that we file. But this was one case where almost every single way the client suffered no defeat, partly because of the client's preparation, and I must say to a huge extent the mindset and the thought process of the client as well, which I'll maybe elaborate a little later. And also, of course, the sheer luck where everything that we tried to avail as a legal remedy worked out. So this is what happened. Client says that the wife has filed an FIR, right, sections 498A, 406, etc. The wife has also filed her domestic violence petition in the court, right? And if I remember correctly, she did not file a section 125 CRPC maintenance case because she was also earning. But she had claimed maintenance under the Domestic Violence Act, and there was a very good chance that she would be able to claim this maintenance because she was earning almost 1/5 of what the client was earning. So there was a good chance that after considering everything, the court of law would have perhaps granted some amount of interim maintenance to the wife as well. Now, and I had to pull this PDF out, right, from our archives because there were just so many things which were done. So I'll go through them one by one, right? Ultimately, what happened was, and maybe I can kind of, talk about these individual cases, and then, it'll be apparent why this client was extremely lucky. Ultimately, after all of these cases, the wife files a transfer petition for one of the cases in the Supreme Court. The matter, goes into mediation. We remember the initial demand of the wife was approximately 3 crore rupees. She went down to about 2 crore rupees from that couple of months later. But after about, I think, a year of litigation, the matter was finally settled at rupees 17 lakhs, 17. This is of a lady whose relative is a senior advocate who works in a women's rights organization. And a lot of things in a certain sense were going against us, right? So I'll share the link, or I'll share the document itself as possible, but I'll go through what were the cases which were, and so paragraph 8, the following cases between them stand quashed and set aside, right? This is what the Supreme Court dictated while passing an order under Article 142 of the Constitution. In a transfer petition for one single case, the Supreme Court pulled out all of these cases down below and finished them off in one single strike, with consent of both the parties, of course, and you'll see why. Number one is the FIR registered by the lady, which was quashed. B was the domestic violence petition filed by the lady, which was again quashed. Now onwards was everything else that the client filed in this matter, the husband and his family filed. C was civil suit pending before so-and-so judge initiated by the respondent. So this was a civil suit for damages that we had filed in Delhi, right, by the husband against one of the family members of the lady. Number D was another civil suit that the husband filed against the lady. Now, interestingly here, both the husband and the wife were residents of Delhi. The wife had initiated her cases in Delhi, but when we were discussing jurisdiction, right, now under civil law, the CPC says that you can initiate a case either where the defendant resides or where the cause of action took place. Now here we were discussing which territorial jurisdiction to choose, and I told the client, when he told me one of these occasions when the wife had called up and threatened the client on the phone, he was in fact at that moment in the city of Bangalore. And when he mentioned this, an idea floated in my head, and I said, we could even choose Bangalore, but then I said myself, it's too much effort. You will have to again go back to Bangalore and file this case. But technically we could do it. And this, mind you, gentlemen, most people will have big apprehensions. The gentleman said, what? Doesn't sound like a bad idea. If I can avail of my legal remedy in Bangalore, let's proceed. So point D is civil suit that we filed in Bangalore against the wife, right? The next one was another civil suit that was filed by the husband, but for a specific purpose, and I'll explain what happened. In the FIR that was registered by the girl, we had to meet the investigating officer, and we convinced him that it's a false case. So the investigating officer decided not to arrest. So we did not even have to apply for anticipatory bail. However, the investigating officer said one thing. There was a car which was registered in the name of the wife, and the wife said that, no matter what they can say about the jewelry not being with them, and they have that they say that I have the jewelry and I say that they have the jewelry, my car is in their possession, and even if you visit their house, and a car is not something that is something that you can hide very easily, right? So the investigating officer said, I have to take into custody the car. And so for this, what we did was, when the client told us that in fact majority of the payments for the car were actually made by the husband client, but the car was in the name of the lady wife, what we did was we filed a civil suit for declaration that we are the owner of the car. And we sought interim orders also that the custody of the car should continue with us, in which summons were issued by the court. And because of the pendency of the civil suit, the investigating officer also dropped his demand to recover the car, right? So the car is also with us in this time. Then an FIR which was registered by the client. Now I tell husband clients all the time, if you try to file an FIR against your wife for beating or cheating or intimidation or extortion, it's very difficult. What we suggest instead to the client is, you should approach the court under section 200 criminal procedure code for the same offences. But this client indeed filed his complaint of theft against the wife, and even that got very luckily registered as an FIR, something that I've seen happen in maybe 2% of our cases. FIR was registered. The investigating officer started calling up the wife and saying, come join investigation, I have to interrogate you. And again, it became a huge pressure point for the wife. Another thing we did was, we filed a domestic violence petition by the mother of the husband against the wife, right? And although you have to be very careful with these domestic violence petitions, because a lot of times the husbands are saying that my mother never lived with the wife, and so my mother has been deliberately impleaded in the domestic violence petition. Now in this same case, if you get your mother to file a domestic violence petition against your wife, then you cannot claim that my mother never stayed, right? The ingredients are the same. So filing a domestic violence petition by the mother of the husband against the wife, right, or the mother's daughter-in-law, is a very tricky thing which should be carefully introspected on before you proceed with it. Now, after that, we also had a criminal complaint, again under section 200 criminal procedure code, filed by the mother of the keep the laptop, I'm recording a video. A section 200 criminal procedure code complaint filed by the mother of the husband against the daughter and the daughter's relatives. So that was another thing that was filed. And then finally, there was a friend who had transferred some money to this wife, and so we included in this whole array of litigation a civil suit for recovery of amounts transferred by the friend of the husband against the wife. And now when all of these cases were filed, now if you remember the civil suit that we filed in Bangalore, that was the transfer petition filed before the Supreme Court of India by the wife, in which summons were issued by the court, and interestingly even stay was not granted. And in the meanwhile, the Bangalore court proceeded ex parte also against the wife and her family members in the civil suit filed by the husband. And so in the backdrop of all of this, with an extremely powerful opponent, we were still able to negotiate a settlement from 2 crore rupees to rupees 17 lakhs. In fact, the opposing counsel told me that they wanted this to be fought through and through, because they were very confident that they will be able to fight back all of these cases. But their client said that it was getting too much for her, and she keeled over. Now, apart from whatever we did, apart from everything that was done, and everything was executed quite seamlessly without any hiccups. That is something that I must myself confess doesn't happen every time, right? A lot of times, say for example, a judge will say that I need to be satisfied on the jurisdiction, so the judge will adjourn the matter from time to time, right? Another time, we file a section 200 criminal procedure code complaint, and in recording the testimony of the witnesses of the prosecution, or in here the complainant, right? The complainant witnesses, it takes a little time, and because of which sometimes there is delay, sometimes there is a judge saying, I don't wish to issue summons, right? So the matter gets stuck. Here in this case, summons were issued out in the section 200 criminal procedure code complaint. Summons issued in the DV petition, FIR was registered by the husband, civil suits, all of them summons were issued. So everything kind of panned out very beautifully. And on top of that, I remember the husband also told me, right after separation, the wife one moment calls a couple of her gundas from her women's rights organization, a couple of extremely large bouncer like ladies, and apparently the client got wind of it. Kuldeep's laughing. Client got wind of it and hired a couple of female bouncers for himself. These female bouncers, by the way, that apparently, another client recently asked for the reference of, and I gave this new client the reference of these same female bouncers, because this lucky husband client was very happy with the services of these female bouncer clients. Apparently a big clash happened right at the doorstep of the client, and but the husband was able to repel the wife when she tried to forcefully enter into the house to establish her claim of a residence order against the husband and her in-laws. So I say through and through, right? Sure, I would say a certain component of luck was involved, a little bit of good effective strategy on our part was involved. But one thing I must also mention is the mental outlook of the person. A lot of times I have husbands who say that, everything's done for, I don't know what to do, right? Anubhav here was telling me in the morning that, a husband that was consulting us yesterday called him and started crying on the phone that my wife cheated on me after a love marriage or relationship prior, and then a love marriage, and then now I'm afraid that she's going to take away half my net worth. What am I supposed to do? And so one thing I realized was that what set apart this particular man from all these other husband clients that we have and people who consult us is the positive mental outlook. He always treated it like a small troublesome situation that he's gotten himself into, but he never doubted for a moment that he is going to come out with a lot of confidence without much damage. And because of that outlook, I feel that to a certain extent, call this a little up in the air, but the universe also to a certain extent conspired in everything turning right for this guy. I would never discount that. But yes, all in all, extremely interesting situation, and a lot of learnings for the whole team, everybody over here as well. But I would say definitely an inspiration for all those husbands who say that we've got a situation where we feel helpless, where we are facing all these false cases and we don't know what to do. You can also avail of your own legal remedies. You should not forget that, and you should just give it a shot.